In today's video, I'm going to show you how to paint this leaf illustration in Procreate step by step. Hello and welcome to Color with Kendi. So for this tutorial, all of the materials that I'm using are linked in the description and the pinned comment. I'm using my paper canvas from the ink and color set, and I'm also using the brushes from that set. And you can download the sketch and the color palette for free. Everything's in the description and pinned comment. Let's begin. Okay, so the first step is to import the sketch into Procreate, and you can do this by downloading the file and then going into the Actions menu in your paper canvas and going to Insert a Photo, and then you can insert it into that canvas file. So the canvas file that comes with this set has a paper background and a paper overlay. Make sure both are turned on. And here is my sketch. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move these colors onto another layer. And then we're going to reduce the opacity of the sketch so that it's very faint. So I'm going to go to the selection tool, going to make sure I'm on freehand and only the add is turned on. And then I'm going to make a lasso around those colors, and then what I'm going to do is 3-finger swipe down, and then I'm going to do cut and paste. So what this will do is it will move the colors on to their own layer. Then I can go back to the layer with the sketch, tap on N, and reduce the opacity. So that way it's very, very faint. We just want to have a very faint view of this. We don't need it to get in our way. Okay, so the first step is to do the line art. You can do this with any color that you want. So go to the color menu. I'm going to pick a very dark color, so I'm just going to go around there. You can pick pure black if you'd like. Pure black is at the 6 o'clock position, but I'm not picking pure black, just a very dark, dark gray. And then what you want to do is go to the brush menu. I'm in my ink and color set. And for this particular illustration, I am going to pick the rough inker A. Pick any of the inkers that you like. And then we are going to go to the layers menu and create another layer on top of the sketch layer, because we don't want to paint on top of the sketch. We want to paint in another layer on top of the sketch. Okay, so let's zoom in. And first of all, let's talk about the brush. So this brush is a pressure sensitive brush. I'm using it at its smaller preset size. So that's a preset size. I'm using it 15%. And depending on how much pressure you apply, you can get thicker lines and thinner lines. So if you look at the sketch, there are some areas where there are thicker lines and some places where the lines are thinner. So we're just going to go around the sketch and do the inking with this rough inker, and I'll walk you through it. So I'm going to start at the very top, just easier. So I'm going to start with very light pressure, then build up my pressure and lighten it as I go to the tip, and now it's heavy pressure and a little lighter pressure. So vary the pressure, and you can do this in any way that you want. You don't have to follow the sketch entirely. It's up to you. But I like that variation in pressure. It creates a very interesting look. So I'm just going to do that. Going to go around the entire sketch and do that. And take your time. I think it's a really nice, mindful activity. If at this point you're finding that the rough inker is too rough for your taste, then you can always try rough inker B. Similar concept, but not as bumpy. But I wanted to go with rough inker A for this. I'm going to zoom back in and I'm going to continue. I always like to rotate the canvas as I move along because I find it's a lot easier rather than moving my hand into awkward positions. And that's kind of the advantage of Procreate, of doing things digitally. It's a lot easier to maneuver things. You don't have to rotate the entire page, you just kind of move it along. Okay, so I'm happy with that. And now I'm going to do the center line. I'm going to start here. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. I like the texture on it, but as I said, if this is too much for you, you can always go to another inker, or you can always reduce the size. When you reduce the size, you will still get that roughness, but it's not as exaggerated as it is there. But I kind of like this, so I'm going to keep it at that. So now I'm going to start coloring. So let's create another layer, tap plus, and this layer is a layer in which we're going to start coloring. So let's bring it below this inking layer. So let's hold it and drag it below. So now it is below that inking layer. So now we're going to start coloring here. So the first color I'm going to color with is this purple. So I'm going to press and hold, and that will help me select the color. I'm going to go to the ink and color set, and then I'm going to go to the textured watercolor. And I'm going to start off by adding that color. It's a bit big, so I'm going to go to size 20, and I'm starting to add in the color. And I'm not trying to be perfect, I'm leaving some gaps. I think that's kind of a nice look. It's up to you. You can make this as perfect as you want, but I like to leave a few gaps. It just makes it a little bit more interesting, and it looks a little bit more hand-done when you leave in some of those gaps. So with this brush, the thing to keep in mind is when you are coloring, if you lift your pencil and then place it again on the paper, you're going to get that overlap. That is because it is a transparent brush, much like watercolor is transparent. And when you have two watercolor layers, they do overlap. So if you want to avoid that overlap, all you have to do is just not lift your pencil when you're filling in one particular shape. So for each of these leaves, I am not lifting my pencil and I'm just filling it. Okay, what I want to do now is fill in the center stem, but I want to do it with a slightly darker color. So I'm going to tap on the color menu, and then I'm going to go down at a slight diagonal and get a slightly darker color. Did you see I lifted the pencil, so there's a little bit of overlap over here, but we can smudge it out, so don't worry. Okay, so that's done. I'm actually going to leave that. I don't mind it. But you can smudge it out if you would like, so I'll just show you how you can do that. So go to the smudge tool area, then make sure you're on the ink and color set, and then go to the smudger. It's towards the top of the set, so right there. And then this is the preset size, which is size 30. I think it might be a bit too big, so go down. It's very important to smudge at the right size, and then you can just gently smudge it out. So that's done. So now that's our base layer done. What I am going to do now is I'm going to go to the layers menu, and I am going to delete, well not delete, but I'm going to turn off that sketch layer. Remember we had that sketch layer that was very low in opacity? I'm just going to turn that off, but I could see it a little bit and I don't need it. And now what I want to do is I want to make the paper texture a little bit more apparent. So what I'm going to do is go to the paper overlay group, tap here, open it up, tap on it again, and then where it says CB, which is color burn, it's the blend mode it's set to, tap on it. And you'll see the opacity is 55. Bring it up to 100. I don't know if you could see the difference. So if I zoom in, when it was 55-ish, the paper texture is not as apparent. Now it's a little bit stronger. If you want your paper texture to look even stronger, here's what you can do. Swipe to the left and duplicate it. And let's close that. And now you'll see that the paper texture is even more apparent. So that's what you can do if you want more of that paper texture. So now I'm happy with the base color, but now let's start to add in variation. That's really where we're going to get the fun stuff. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to this layer here and create another layer over it. And that's where we're going to add the variation. So tap on plus, you get another layer, and we're going to use clipping masks. So if clipping masks sound really complicated, they really are not. So clipping mask basically means that anything that I will add in this clipping mask layer will only show up on the painted area underneath. It will not go outside the bounds of it. And that is something that's very handy. So I'll show you what I mean. So first we're going to do this without a clipping mask, and then we're going to convert it to a clipping mask, and I'll show you what I mean. So let's grab this color right here, and I'm going to go to the washi background brush, and I'll show you a little example. So if I start to add some variation here, do you see it's going outside the lines? So what I would have to do is erase this. That would take quite a bit of time, but if I convert this layer, the one where I painted, into a clipping mask, as you can see, it's only showing up on the purple portion underneath. It's not going outside the bounds. So this is a great way to add a little bit of color variation. But as you noticed, the colors aren't as saturated now. So let me turn that clipping mask off. It's really, really saturated. But when I turn it on, do you see it's quite light? So the problem here that we're having is we're doing a clipping mask on a layer underneath that is transparent. This will always happen with watercolor brushes. So if you want this layer here to look more intense, there's a little trick. So what you can do is go back to that layer where you have painted the leaves. And what we want to do is convert the transparent pixels into non-transparent pixels. This sounds complicated, but the process is pretty easy. So all you want to do is duplicate that layer. Let's turn the upper layer off. And now we're going to duplicate this and then merge it a couple times. So as you see, it's getting darker and darker. So what's happening is I am duplicating it multiple times and all of the transparent pixels are disappearing. And maybe I'll do it once more. Actually, I don't need to. So now it's pretty opaque. Now, the problem is we've lost some of that watercolor effect. So what we're going to do is we are going to convert all of this to white. So we're going to go to the color menu, double tap at the 10 o'clock position, and you will get pure white. Then we're going to fill our layer. Now, before we fill our layer, we want to only fill in the white on the colored portion, not the entire layer. If I said fill layer right now, the entire screen would turn white. That's not what we want. We want this leaf doodle to turn white. So the way to do this, with 2 fingers, get into alpha lock mode. And now what will happen is the white will only show up on the leaves. So then go to fill layer. So now we have basically created a leaf shape, if you can see that there. And now there are no transparent pixels anymore. So now let's turn this layer back on. And now you're going to see the magic. So let me zoom out. You can really see the magic. So right now, because our clipping mask here is on top of a transparent layer, do you see it's not very dark? But now if I merge these two, much darker. So if you're ever using any watercolor brushes and you're struggling with using clipping masks and you're seeing that the results aren't that great, they're very faint, what you need to do is basically transform those transparent pixels into non-transparent pixels. So basically white pixels and merge. If this was complicated, watch this section again and you'll get the hang of it. I think the first time I did this, I was like, what's going on? But it's a very useful tool when using watercolor in Procreate. So anyway, that's what you do. So now you can see this clipping mask is a lot stronger. So I'm going to go back to that washi background brush, go back to this color, and I want to start to add some color variation wherever I feel like. It's really up to you, wherever you feel like. This looks kind of crazy right now. We are going to smudge it out. And then I'm going to also pick this color here and add some color variation. Okay, now it's time to start smudging that color variation. So go to your smudge tool. You should have the smudger selected. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to use size 15 and gently smudge it. I don't want to remove all of the hard edges. I kind of like some of the hard edges, so I'm going to keep them, but I'm going to do some faint smudging wherever I feel like smudging it. So it's up to you, it's your decision, but I do like to just keep some hard edges here and there. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that, and you can keep going and you can add more and more pigment wherever you want and just smudge it out so it looks a bit more natural. And if you want to leave some hard edges, you can definitely do that. And now what I want to do is add the splatters. So let's go add another layer, tap on plus, and now we are going to add splatters around this with a dark color, probably with the same color that we did our inking with. So I'm going to select that color and then I'm going to go to the ink splatter tool. Now before I make the splatters, I want to remove this. I no longer need this. So I'm going to remove that. I'm just going to uncheck the box. So now I don't see it. And now let's talk about the splatter brush. So the splatter brush is pressure sensitive. I'm using it at its preset size of 15. And what happens when you use light pressure is you get very, very small splatters. But if you use heavy pressure, much bigger. And to get the most interesting look, start off with light pressure and then move to heavy pressure. And lift your pencil off the screen as you do that. Light, heavy, and lift. So you get an interesting variation. And now you can decide how many splatters you want to add and where. It's totally up to you. You can go crazy adding them everywhere, or if that's too much, just leave it at that. If you want to add a little bit more detail, you can do that too. So I'm actually going to add a little bit more detail, but if you don't want to, you don't have to. So let me go in to the layers menu and let's do this in another layer. So if I decide not to use it, I can always remove it. And then I'm going to go back to the rough inker A that we used. And what size am I going to use? So this is the preset size. I think this might be too big. I might go a little bit smaller, size 10. And what I'm going to do is just add a thin line in each leaf. And I'm not trying to be too perfect about it. I think the beauty is just to have the imperfections, but start with a thin line and then go a little thicker. Actually, you know what? I kind of like the lines. It adds a little bit more to this illustration. So yes, I would suggest doing the lines, but you don't have to be too perfect with them. You can make very thin lines if you want to keep it subtle, or you can even do lines in white. That might be an interesting look. I think it's all about experimenting. Oops, I didn't like that. And trying different things. Okay, I think that brought it to life even more. So yeah, I definitely like that. So yeah, that's it. We're done. And I would love for you to try this out, and also you can try out using different colors. You can change this up. I created a purple leaf that doesn't generally exist. I should have done green, but I like purple, so that's why I use purple. But change up the colors, try something else, and have some fun with this. And if you want to learn how to change up the colors of this, I have another video where I show you how I change up the colors of this, so be sure to watch that. Thank you very much for watching to the end. I will see you in the next video.